No, okay. There. Yeah. Just be cool and don't blow this. I need this.
Oh! Welcome, fellow gamers, to the first ever broadcast of video games today, tonight, and all the time, here on Channel 2. I'm your host, Mike Thiel.
And I'm Carl Dove. Before we go any further, me and Mike would like to thank our sponsors for making this whole thing happen. Taco Bell, Staples, wealthy philanthropist Ryan Field, and Taco Bell.
Tacos and video games. That's my kind of night. No girls allowed. Girls are gross.
That they are, Mike. That they are. We start tonight with our first ever selection of Game of the Week. And tonight the winner is
Monkey Ball on the Nintendo GameCube. A game with clean graphics and over 90 stages to advance. This game will keep your heart pounding and your thumbs a-flying. Now we move on to our feature presentation of the night, and it's an exclusive interview with the man, the myth, the legend, Ralph Baer.
Commonly referred to as the father of video games, this man deserves the thanks of gamers everywhere, as he is the first to produce a video game to be played in the home after creating the Magnavox Odyssey, which first appeared in 1972.
I think I love this guy.
I think we all do.
No, I mean seriously, I think I love this guy.
Okay, let's take it easy.
Anyways, sit back and relax and watch an interesting interview as I teach Ralph a few things about technology, and I'm confident that you might even think of me as more smarter than Ralph after watching.
It's not how that goes.
Well, wow. Let me just say, it is such an incredible honor to be sitting here with you today. I'm sorry, I'm just a little bit nervous.
It's perfectly understandable, son, and don't worry about it. I'm happy to be here.
First things first, I just want to get this out of the way. You are not behind the making of the movie Wreck-It Ralph?
No. That was an animated movie that was made several years back. We just share a name. I did not make that movie.
Oh, okay, well, wow, I didn't even realize that movie was animated. It looks completely real. In fact, I don't think it is animated, but anyways, let's just move on. Let's start from the beginning. Can you tell me a little bit about your early life?
Well, I was born in Germany in 1922. However, I moved to the United States in 1938 with my parents and my little sister.
Germany, huh? That's pretty cool. Buongiorno. That's interesting that you're originally from Germany. Nice job escaping that Adolf Hitler guy. What type of education have you received through your life?
Well, I graduated from a national radio institution in 1940 as radio service technician. Then, I graduated with a BS in television engineering from the American Television Institute of Technology. This was an institute ran by U.A. Sanabria, who was a pioneer in mechanical television. He founded the school in the mid-1930s, and I was actually one of the school's first graduates.
As far as family life goes, you married your wife in 1952 and had 3 kids, correct?
That is correct.
Go on.
I was under the impression that I already answered the question.
Well, how about that? Let's move on to jobs now. What are some of the positions you have held throughout your hundreds of years?
Well, I served in the World War II with the United States Army from 1943 to 1946, where I worked in military intelligence. After that, I did a whole host of things. Some of them include running 3 radio service stores in New York City, following the war, where I serviced all types of home and auto radios. Following that, I served as the chief engineer at Wappling Incorporated, where I designed and built surgical cutting machines.
Scandalous.
Then, from 1951 to 1954, I worked at L'Oreal Electronics, where I built a computer television system and started construction of a time clock. In 1967, I became manager of electronic game design at Sanders, and eventually moved up to chief engineer of equipment design, where I was in charge of 500 employees, which is when I created the little brown box. I'm sorry, is everything okay? You seem to be texting.
Oh yeah, that stuff was just really boring. I mean, really boring. So, I wanted to talk to some of my friends. Let's just cut. I need a break. Ow. Alright, let's get back on track. If anyone is now just tuning in, we are sitting here with Ralph Baer, the father of video games and the creator of the movie Wreck-It Ralph. Alright, let's get to the good stuff and start discussing your role in creating the Magnavox Odyssey in 1972. First of all, can you explain to our viewers what the Odyssey was?
Well, the Odyssey featured a monochrome screen and no color or sound. Players also had to keep track of their own scores while playing their game either in their heads or on a sheet of paper. It was also battery powered and was the first home video console ever developed. It consisted of the console, game cartridges, and translucent plastic overlays to color a television screen. These overlays allowed players to play anything from roulette to skiing to tennis. The system was sold from 1972 to 1975, and we sold around 300,000 units in all.
Cool. Well, this is going to be fun. Over the break, we asked viewers to send in any questions they might have for Ralph, and we got quite a few responses. The first one comes from PonderMom63, and he asks, when did the idea of creating the Magnavox Odyssey first come to you?
That's a good question, Pony Mom, and the answer, excuse me, the idea actually first came to me in 1951 when I was working for Baer Electronics. Oh man, my ribs. Nobody was interested when I first pitched the idea to them, however, although the thought did stay in my mind. You have to understand, I was there to build televisions, and when I asked my boss about creating an interactive game, he said, quote, "Forget it. Just build the damn television. It's already behind schedule." It wasn't until 1966 that I made a formal 12-page presentation to Sanders, the company I was working for at the time. I was allowed to construct a prototype, which led me to filing for a patent on August 21st, 1969, entitled Television Gaming Apparatus and Method.
Boy, I bet Baer sure did regret that terrible decision. Sounds about as bad of a decision as I usually make on a Friday night. Alright, this next question is sent in from Anonymous, and it asks, what are some of the major obstacles you had to overcome in the creation of the Magnavox Odyssey?
Well, Anonymous, there were several. The first that I'd like to describe is we had to prove that spots could easily be displayed on a television screen. To accomplish this, I assigned engineer Bob Tremblay to the task of building a vacuum tube circuit to prove it could be done. Bob successfully finished this work in February 1967 and showed it was also possible to change the spot shape from a square to a rectangle and to stretch out the lines.
Touchdown!
Yes! Another obstacle was obtaining funding. This work at Sanders had nothing to do with what our company exclusively produced, which was defense electronics. So the money wasn't exactly rolling in. In December 1966, I decided I should demonstrate my demo to Herbert Chapman, who was the company's corporate director. It was during this meeting that I was able to show him the first real chase game, which was really just two squares chasing after one another. Herbert said, "It looks like it has potential, but it better be a hell of a lot more interesting than this." They sent me $2,000 for labor and $500 for material, which wasn't a ton, but was enough to keep the project going. Eventually, after more than 2 years of work on TV gaming systems at Sanders Associates, me, Bill Harrison, and Bill Rush ended up with a prototype unit which played 12 games called the Brown Box because of its wood grain self-adhesive covering. The Brown Box was used to take the project to the next level. and eventually was able to allow us to go to the next and most important step, which was finding a licensee.
So raw, so authentic. It's an honor to be here.
Of course, finding a licensee wasn't so easy, but then again, when is anything ever easy? After a presentation to the cable station teleprompter did not work, I flew out to a company named Magnavox in July 1968. On one of their 19-inch TVs, I set up the brown box, a light gun, and a golf pulling device. One by one, people at the company shuffled through trying our product. And eventually, Vice President of Marketing at the company, Jerry Martin, exclaimed, "We're going with this!" And our licensee was complete.
We have had lots of talks about your brown box, but I'm curious if there's anything else noteworthy that you can call your own?
Why, yes, there is. In July 1976, me and several others began construction of a game called Simon. I was first introduced to a game similar to this in Atari's Touch Me. However, their execution was rather boring, and it had terrible rasping sounds. It just wasn't pleasing to play. 2 years later, we released Simon, and it became an instant success. In fact, it's referred to by many as being a pop culture icon of the 1970s and 80s. Say, Carl, you've been inundating me with questions. I figured I might ask you one. What do you hope to call a career someday? Or are you going to school right now?
Well, I graduated 10th grade back in 2008, so I do have an extensive education. Big. To rely on top of intelligence, whereas many children, schooling. But then when I get big, I hope to either be an astronaut, a news anchor, or maybe even a Taco Bell employee.
I'm going to be honest, 10th grade education is a little more than I was expecting, so congrats.
Thank you. What a journey. We have just had a couple of questions left for you, Ralph. The next one comes from someone named Mike's wife, and it reads, "Mike, I'm getting a divorce. I can't take your crying anymore, and you are actually kind of ugly." It looks like that was an email from my wife. My apologies. Alright, let's put on a brave face.
Yikes.
We're back from a brief break. 2 questions left. The first is, what do you believe the impact of the Magnavox Odyssey is?
Well, of course, I think we started the ball moving, so to say. We were the first, but many game consoles followed us, such as the Atari in 1975. Of course, Atari basically copied our product, which is why we took them to court, and eventually they were forced to pay us royalty fees. That Nolan Bushnell, not a fan. But I also think that we were able to demonstrate that there was indeed a market for home video games in the United States. And that people were willing to buy these consoles for around $100, which back then was quite a lump of money.
Nolan. Can't stand that guy. One final question, and this is a tough one. If there was such a thing as a Technology Hall of Fame, like in soccer, why should you be included in it?
I think I deserve to be in the Techno Profit Hall of Fame, should they have one, because I'm the true pioneer of video games. There's actually, believe it or not, still some debate over who created the first video game. Some believe it's Thomas Goldsmith and Esselman, when they created a missile simulator that connected a computer to a cathodic ray disk in 1947. Some even believe it was a man named Nim who created a mathematics strategy game for a computer in 1951. However, none of these games are proper video games. Goldsmith and Mann required overlays on the television screen because their screen couldn't even create graphics. And Nim used only a bank of lights for his display. Even Higginbotham's Tennis for Two in 1958 wasn't believed to be anything special by Higginbotham himself. Higginbotham's game, Tennis for Two, was good, very clever, but that's all it was. Also, it used an oscilloscope, which was a display used to show electrical voltages. So it did not use proper rasterized images as a television did. In addition, Higginbotham was a nuclear physicist, so he wasn't really even in the business of producing games. Ultimately, my brown box was the first video game console, and it finally hit stores in August 1972 as the Magnavox Odyssey. It took decades worth of research, patent filing, begging for funding, and receiving a license. However, me and the rest of the team put our nose to the grindstone and we got it done. Despite some marketing failures at Odyssey, for example, many people thought you needed a Magnavox television in order to buy a Magnavox Odyssey, which was not true. Despite all those things, we were still able to sell 100,000 units in the first year. My work was then rewarded in 2006 when I received the National Medal of Technology from President George W. Bush. This was for my lifetime's work in video games. Also, I didn't just create the Odyssey. I successfully applied for over 50 patents in my life, and as I mentioned, created the Simon game in 1978.
Wow, a gold medal in technology. That's awesome. Can't help but think I'll get one of those myself one day. Me and the entire news team here at Video Games Today, Tonight, and all the time send our sincere thanks for joining us on the program today. Be sure to tune in next week at 9, 8 Central as we interview Colin Powell. Bye now. Well, let me just say, it is such an incredible honor to be sitting here with you. I'm sorry, I'm just a little bit nervous.
Well, as first...
See, I don't know if it's gonna work. We can, because we'll get used to it.